And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Welcome those tuning in directly on Amazon. We're glad you all could be with us. Hello to you, Deborah Hunter, early with us on the Facebook side. Welcome to you, my friend. For those joining us on Amazon Live, you guys will see not one but two books from our current guest, who's actually a repeat guest and someone I'm glad to call my friend. You see here on screen with me author Tina Siemens is back with us today to talk to us not only about the continued success of her book Seminole, which was her first book, but her brand new book, The Little Sandals That Could. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it on the Amazon Live side for you guys. As you guys can see, I have both of them here in print. You can be able to get them for yourself. I'm going to talk to Tina not only about the writing of her own family story, but also her story and how it's been able to impact readers of all ages. Hello to you, Melissa. Good to be able to see you as well. If you're joining us on the Amazon Live side and you are new to Tina, you can be able to pick up her books today. If you click either down below us or on the side, you will be able to click on the book to be able to order them for yourself. Also, while you're over there, make sure you guys give us a follow. We have programming here 7 days a week here on Amazon Live. We'd love for you to be able to join our community here. But Tina, thank you again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. What an honor. It's every time we get on, it's like a little girl in a candy store. It's just such a pleasure to be on with you. Thank you.
Well, look, Tina, I appreciate that. And it's always great to catch up with you. And this is our first time actually on the Amazon Live platform since your new book came out, The Little Sandals That Could. We're going to get into that. But what has this experience been like for you, Tina? If I had met you 10 years ago and I said to you, Tina, you know what? You're going to publish two books. You're going to be able to share your family's history, and you're going to be able to inspire people around the country. Would you believe me?
Absolutely not. It would have been a dream. But for that dream to become reality, I would not have believed it.
Hmm. And Tina, anyone who follows you, of course, we're also broadcasting on social media, so we do welcome those tuning in on Facebook, on Twitter. We actually have Tina tagged over there on Twitter as well as on YouTube. You know, it's been great for me as your friend to see you branch out, to see you doing live videos, to see you being able to share more with us. What has that experience been like for you to tell your story and to know that your story matters to other people?
Well, it certainly used a lot of coaching and coasting. Uh, I I wanted to do it, but just not ever having been grown up around technology, not knowing technology that well, and so a lot of challenges. But in hindsight now, looking back, wow, what a journey it's been because I've learned so much, and it's been through people like you and with so many others that have given me the opportunity to branch out and to wet my feet and to just say I can do this.
Yeah,
I've lived the perseverance lifestyle,
right.
but now this was a brand new challenge to just go the extra step and go into the live and go into hearing my own voice.
Yeah.
It's not something that I would have felt comfortable even 2 years ago. But
Mm.
through God's grace, it's been possible. And I have loved being able to share not only what it means for me personally, but to be able to tell my family story.
Yeah. And let's talk about your family story, Tina. I'm going to go ahead and highlight Seminole, Some People Will Never Give Up, which was the first book, how you and I were introduced. I was so inspired. You and I have never met in person, but
That's
I
right.
was so inspired by this book because I think a lot of times when we are finding ourselves in situations, I know I've been there this year a lot, where you wonder if I can get through something, if I can
Yeah.
overcome this challenge or this limitation. You literally have a family to look at to say, you know what? If they were able to get through what they got through,
Yeah.
surely I can get over this that I'm dealing with. Is that what it felt like for you to hear your family's history and then to be able to share it now in this book?
Yes, it is almost on a daily basis. I can glean back and look back. Okay, that's what they did, and not only for myself, but giving it to my grandchildren now. Uh, Teaching it. There's so many teachable moments throughout my family's history, and for me to have been had the privilege of traveling and learning that family history, putting it into a timeline and now I can plug in myself. I can plug in my grandchildren's lives into it. And so for me to be able to do that, it's really a daily cup of joy that I can glean from because of what their experiences was.
Love that. And now we're all able to benefit. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, you're watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm joined today by Tina Siemens. We're talking to Tina not only about her love of storytelling, sharing her family's own story, but now this year she's doing it with her own story too. In this book, The Little Sandals That Could, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it again on the Amazon Live side. So let's talk about this, Tina. Did you always know that you wanted to go back and share your own history of not only, of course, coming to the United States and what that experience was like, but also your own lessons of perseverance?
I always dreamt of being some sort of teacher, whether it was in a small Sunday school class or in a small group of people that were interested in hearing. But for me to be able to have this type of platform, I would have never dreamt that was a possibility. I always thought it would just be a memoir that I would get on paper and that it would be for future generations. But to have it available on Amazon and in bookstores in Canada and in Mexico and here in the US, I would have never dreamt that. But now it's a reality and I'm embracing it and loving it.
Yeah. A big thing that comes out about Tina that we're able to see in The Little Sandals That Could, actually a lesson that was mirrored in her first book, Seminole, Some People Never Give Up, is the importance of faith. You know, I tell people all the time, Tina, that I would not be here where I am today if it was not for faith. Of course, we know with that faith comes the work. We have to do the work. Yes. It's one thing to believe, but it's another thing to act in harmony with that belief. What was that like for you to look at the examples of faith in your life?
They are like foundations that I could build on. Like if they hadn't been able to provide that history, and if it hadn't been recorded in some fashion or some ways through history books and through archives that I was able to glean from what their experiences was. So that was a foundation that was laid for hundreds of years before I even came on the scene. So Queen Esther's story, for such a time as this, like the timing is so perfect. God's timing is always perfect. So for me to have been able to go back and glean from what their experiences was and now build on that, add my family story, and then being able to give that to the next generations and people who've read the book, who are now reading the book. It's just a continuous circle of influence, and I'm so grateful for that.
We all have heard the saying, Tina, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Yeah. And one thing that I was surprised about when I first got The Little Sandals That Could is that you were able to share pictures of your own family. What was it like for you to look at those pictures and look at those individuals and your place in history and their place in history?
Well, to me, pictures are truly what makes, and I was asking my grandchildren, our two granddaughters are 10, and the grandsons, both of them are 8 right now. And so I was asking them, what would make you look at a book? And by far the most voted was pictures. And so that I took that and I said, okay, I've got to really hone in on what does the story say, not just by words, but through pictures. So it was a pleasure for me to be able to include an image on every page.
So I want to talk about the image that we see on the cover. We've talked about the history and the meaning behind the cover of Seminole. When you see the cover of The Little Sandals That Could, what stands out to you?
Definitely the sandals, because that was my pride and joy. That was the only thing that I could, without the clothes on my back, that was the only thing that I could take with me when immigrating from Mexico to Texas. And so they were precious in my sight. They were those jelly sandals, the plastic, that have a very distinct smell. And so when I would wash those little sandals, after wearing them all day long, and the sole of the sandals had little blocks in it, so they would always be fed up with West Texas dirt and little rocks, and so I would wash them every night, and the smell was like brand new. And because they were the plastic, they looked new again. So for me, definitely the sandals. And then the bench, that's a very typical Mennonite bench made by almost every Mennonite household has that type of bench. So for me, it was precious to be able to include me sitting down on that bench with the state of Texas behind it. So it has multiple meanings in my eyes. And I just pray that that will be something that will really get the attention of the reader.
Yeah, for sure. I think it will. The other thing I want to talk about in the Little Sandals That Could, and I mean it makes an appearance in Seminole as well, Tina, but definitely when it comes to your own personal story, I think people of all ages can relate to this, and that is being looked at as different. You talked about going to school, and being different, dressing different,
Yes.
and how unfortunately we live in a world that does not embrace
Yeah.
the importance of that individual's uniqueness and what they bring to
Mhm.
the table. What do you hope, especially young people, get from that? Realizing the importance of acceptance, as well as getting to know people for who they are.
It is very important because we're in the age of bullying and just not acceptance, like you said. But for them to get to know the little girl or the little boy that's maybe quietly sitting somewhere, uh, everybody has a story. And so if I encourage my grandchildren to really focus on the kids that are kind of left behind, and
Yeah,
they to go over there and make a friend, because so often those that are lonely, they are so ready to be a friend, and so it takes a friend to be a friend. And so if they give of themselves, then they will be able to reap a friendship that they might not have ever come across had they not made the first move. So
yeah.
definitely make that first move, and encourage the next generation, the younger kids, to be inclusive of others.
Such a great point. Such a great reminder for sure. So, we kind of began this conversation today, Tina, talking about now you have these two books out, and there are some great conversations there. But I think the other big thing that we're taking away, at least I'm taking away from this conversation, is the importance of history.
Yes.
What do you say to your family? You mentioned a couple times about your grandchildren. What do you tell them about the importance of knowing their history and knowing about those who came before them and the impact they had on you and others?
Well, it is so important for me to have had the opportunity to go back and really uh, connect the dots of what my ancestors, every one of my ancestors had a migration behind their belt. So every second and third generation made another move. And so for us to learn the history, no matter if you're still in the same home that you were born at, which is such a privilege, but if you weren't, start by there's usually at least one person per family that loves to be a record keeper. The Old Testament talks about having somebody that keeping your records. So if there is a child that shows interest in keeping the record, encourage them by giving them simple forms. Like I'll have extra printed forms of just yourself, your mom and dad, and your grandparents. Like try to get just simple forms out to those who express a little bit of interest in learning their history.
Yeah, such a great point. I want to go back on the Amazon Live side. I've been featuring between the two books, Seminole as well as The Little Sandals That Could. I'm going to go back to Seminole for a moment because of what you just said, because it all began with that book for you, Tina. You're
Yes.
being able to share that rich history that you were able to discover and that resilience. It wasn't about what they had materially. It really was
No.
about who they
Mhm.
were and knowing what they brought to the table. And again, going back to faith being such a big part of that. When people pick up this book,
Mhm.
Seminole, what do you hope it does for them? It's your personal story, but what do you hope it does for the reader?
My prayer is that it would be an encouragement to not get stuck. to, if you are in a really hard spot right now, then God never takes something away without replacing it with something better. So if you are in a really hard place today, don't get stuck there. Keep moving, even if it's just pacing in place. But keep moving, because there will be a time where you will be able to launch forward. And so I think that would be my prayer. Perseverance does not happen by sitting still. The opportunities will only present themselves if you take those opportunities. So everybody has the opportunities come across their path, but it's my personal choice and everyone's personal choice to take that opportunity. So I would just encourage them, don't stand still, keep moving and keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Deborah mirrors what you said there. She said, keep moving. Dr. Clara, hello to you. Glad you could join us as well. Great message for sure, Tina, and it's so timely as well. I think, there is this importance of knowing history, for one, that we can learn from it, but also to be inspired by it. And I think a lot of times when we think about history, we sometimes just focus on the negative, but there's so many great lessons we can learn from history as well. And I think Seminole is a great example of that. And what about the Little Sandals That Could, Tina? When people pick up that book and read it, we've talked about this before, actually, when we were on the radio, I think, where I mentioned it, it's you wrote your first book for children, but as you mentioned in that conversation, it's a book that people of all ages are enjoying. So when they read Little Sandals That Could, what do you want them to take from it?
That no matter what your age, from a very young age, you can be influenced and you can influence others.
Mm, love that. Love that. Such a great message. Hello to you, Joyce. Good to be able to see you. Joyce is very inspirational. Tina's always inspirational. She's always going to bring the inspiration, the positivity, as well as being motivating. So I want to ask you this question, Tina, a little different than what we talked about before, because you are now an example as to what other people can do. You now haven't written just one book, you've written two books, more on the way. You and I were talking about that before we went live here. What advice do you give people who may say, well, Tina, I've always wanted to share my story. I've always wanted to tell my family story. What advice do you give them?
Start today, because there's no better time than today to start something. I always say that there's only one day a year that we can do anything, and that is today. Yesterday is gone and tomorrow's not yet here. It's only today. So I would say start today. Maybe even just write one page of your desire. Like, I want to do this, but where do I start? So start by just writing down one page of what your desire is, what your hopes would be to get that, and that will lead to into new ideas and other avenues that will follow. So just get started.
Love that. Tina, what a great message, as it always is with you. So glad to have you back on with us. Again, everyone, Tina Siemens has been our guest here. She's the author of two books. We're going to go ahead and go back to Seminole, Some People Never Give Up. You guys can see it there, as well as the new book, The Little Sandals That Could. Both of them, as you guys can see, are available on Amazon. Definitely invite you guys to get them for yourself, to read them, be inspired by them, because there are so many great lessons, I think, for all of us there. And Tina, how can they best stay connected with you?
Well, thank you again for the messages on the side, and I'd love to hear from you at seminolethebook@gmail.com, or they're on Amazon and Kindle audio as well as paperback. So let me know if you'd like to have a signed copy sent. I'd be glad to do that as well. But reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Congratulations again, Tina, and looking forward to our next chat together.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. What a privilege.
Always, always. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.